witnesses. But I think if you remember in the US, how did the prosecutors in the US manage to nail the mafia, especially the Chicago mafia? It was difficult to charge them. They charged them with embezzlement and or racketeering and all that. But you see, they were able to intimidate witnesses. So what did they do? They went and pursued them on tax. So how do you use KRA? Because at least the KRA data can assist you to pursue suspects without necessarily having flesh and blood witnesses. Thank you.
Mine goes to Barasa. You talked about interagency collaboration. How effective is it? And to that extent, has it ever been a case where the inherent weaknesses or internal problems of some of the agencies happen to affect your performance or work through aspects such as territoriality or just not being willing to share with you what they should? And how do you navigate that when it happens?
I think we'll answer those questions first. Mr. Mark Barasa.
Thank you very much. The first question which has been asked, I've been asked to define deep state and system. I've looked at our manuals and guidelines, and I only came across the word state. I didn't come across deep state. And state is what our leader, the DPP, defined earlier. He said it's a unit comprising of a geographical territory, population, sovereignty, and government. That's the definition of a state. And a system, that one does not exist in our guidelines. So when you hear someone talking about deep state and system, maybe the only state we know is the geographical, territorial, government, and population. But anything other than that, it doesn't exist in our vocabulary. And then system, I don't think it exists in our guidelines either. On interagency collaboration, weaknesses of internal problems of some agencies, yes, we do have challenges and weaknesses, but we also have opportunities for engagement. So when we come together, we are stronger and we are able to work together efficiently. And I think that is the best thing through a whole of government approach. In fact, now we are saying not just whole of government approach, but whole of society, so that all of us together, including the media, civil society, development partners, one finger cannot lift a load. It takes the whole hand to work. So we need each other. And when we come together, we complement each other. Thank you.
I'll respond in regard to the two questions that have been asked in regard to follow the money approach and in regard to prosecution-led investigations. So in regard to the follow the money approach, for most of the corruption cases, of course, the basis is that we are following, they are founded on the loss of public funds. So we really do not per se focus on a lifestyle audit. We are guided by where the money went after it left the public institution. So our mandate, or at the investigative stage, it's that that money is supposed to be followed to see to which account it went to and moved to which personalities, so as to establish the persons who are culpable. However, that aside, the POCAMLA Act also has a provision in regard to unexplained assets, and this is more of a function that ARA normally performs. So they do more of the civil proceedings, and they're able to institute cases that arise out of personalities who they might find have unexplained assets, and they are probably in a position to recover. In regard to the prosecution, on our part, we call them prosecution-guided investigations. I think there was a bit of an issue with the lead part. So, but our role mostly is in terms of guiding or advising, not in terms of conducting the investigations. So that we instituted this approach to reduce the turnaround time of the investigation, so that as they are investigating, we are guiding on what gaps exist or are there, so that they are covered and the investigations are concluded much faster. However, at times you're able to find a case where there are various elements involved. So probably elements in terms of taxation, there are still probably other elements we can charge on anti-corruption. So sometimes you would find that such cases, if at all, can run concurrently. So we can still decide to charge on something on the tax law, but also there could probably be another ongoing cases on the corruption part.
I'll respond on. You asked, at what point does the DPP decide who is a state witness or when one becomes an accused person? The straight answer, the clear answer is when the DPP is making the decision to charge, which is upon review, initial review of the file. So upon initial review, remember, before you become an accused person, you have to have criminal culpability has to be clear, an analysis of the evidence and public interest, like we had said, then you can say this person can become a suspect. Now, the Constitution also allows the DPP, during the course of trial, to review any of the files that they have within them, within their basically any of the files, that whether they're in court or at whatever point. So once the DPP reviews this file, depending on any additional evidence here and there, you are still allowed, based on the evidence that you get, to turn any of the suspects into a witness. Or sometimes you'll even find that you find evidence that you hadn't found before that would make one of the witnesses actually more culpable than whoever is already charged, and then you can now charge this witness afresh. So it is during the course of review of inquiry files by the DPP, either at the initial stage or at any stage as per the provisions of the Constitution. I hope we have responded to the both of them.
I think when we started, Ruth said there are charter and rules. First of all, I think there was a question on the charge sheet that was not addressed. And Madam Obala here is the one who asked the question about the charge sheets. The ones that are in the police manual that Mr. Baraza alluded to, of course, we are still using the old police charge sheets. Once we gazette ours, then ours will start being used. But those are just samples to assist the police to prepare the charge sheet quickly. Now, also we are not saying that the police cannot propose. They will bring a proposed charge sheet. But the thing is, the discretion is on us, whether to adopt it or whether to draft new charges, depending on what we have seen in the file after reviewing it. Now, somebody talked about RICO, and this is the Racketeer Influenced and Corruption Organization from the US. This was a very extended piece of legislation. Actually, some people might say it was a very draconian piece of legislation that allowed the US agencies to investigate very, very, very aggressively against, as you said there, the mafia and other individuals who are involved in criminal and corrupt dealings. Now, this act was almost a one-stop act that provided electronic surveillance that provided how they can get warrants to come in and freeze your accounts, and it's a very, very strong piece of legislation. But how did they achieve it? Because there was goodwill from the politicians who enact this piece of legislation. The question is, do we have the goodwill? Hiyo nyinyi ndo mtajibu. Nyinyi ndo ma reporters mnaninio. Do you think that as Kenya we will be allowed to get such a piece of legislation that would allow us to do that? Hiyo mtatujibu. The next thing, these things only work if those who are charged with that mandate to discharge and operationalize those acts are people of integrity and who will ensure that when you have that piece of legislation, it will not be abused. Because it is very, very draconian. Ni kama piece of legislation, sasa unaweza pea mtu leo anakuwa dictator hii nchi with that piece of legislation. So, do you think we can get that piece of legislation and be able to effect it and ensure that it is not abused? These are some of the questions that we have to ask ourselves. And that's why maybe as Kenya, we are growing slowly, piece by piece, and we're putting the blocks in place within time. And we might not be able to bring a RICO here now, because maybe the environment is not conducive, and in any case, maybe certain individuals would not be comfortable to have such a piece of legislation. Thank you.
We have our last question.
Thank you. I have two issues. One is actually I would like to commend the Office of the ODPP for empowering the young people. It's really commendable, and keep it up, that you have young people who are actually taking very serious roles, and I think all government agencies should emulate that. Then the other one is still on this crime mapping. From Leila, I would like to understand, do you normally go beyond the figures you see once you do this crime mapping? For instance, how often do you go and study and try to understand underlying causes of certain crime trends in a certain region? And if you do that, where do you take that information? Thank you.
So to answer your question, the use of crime mapping is something that we have just started doing, so it's still relatively new, but the intention is to tie it into the community dialogues that we already hold, which allows us to go to different communities and actually understand what their issues are on the ground. So being able to have these figures will just help add to what issues that they have and allow us to then be more collaborative when we want to focus on these issues, especially when it comes to like county governments, because we can show them these figures and we can work towards solving the issues together.
Tumeweza ama tujaweza? Editors Guild hoye! Editors Guild hoye! Tumeweza ama tumeweza? Tumeweza ama tumeweza? You're letting me down now. Clap for us at least. Okay, clap for yourselves. I'd like to thank our director for giving us young people a chance to be able to lead the session and to take active roles. Asante sana. Tumechukua na mkono zote mbili na tutafanya kazi bado huko mbele. Kitupatia more roles we'll do, tutafanya kazi. Other than that, I think I want to hand it over to our seniors. Let me hand it over to our seniors.
Cleo wants to answer the question that Hassan asked before.
Okay. I hear there's a last intervention. Sorry.
Oh, hi. Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. To the ODPP, I think you've spent the whole afternoon and some part of the morning answering questions. I'm a journalist, but we earn a living from asking questions, so it's just okay that you are answering them. But before we took the lunch break, one of your colleagues asked us a question which nobody has answered yet. He more or less accused us or said that when there's an event like this one, what comes out in the paper tomorrow or what comes out on TV is totally different from what was said. So I wanted to explain that many a time it's not that you're misquoted, or when we come to these events that people come with a mind that we are going to twist the story to paint you in bad light or to write a lie. Sometimes we don't even meet, everybody goes with a different story. But sometimes in the event of explaining something, or if you're asked a question and in the event of answering it, you say one thing and a reporter or a writer picks that and runs with it. I'll just give you an example. Like today, we talked about, you talked about how COVID probably played a role in slowing down prosecution of cases. So a writer could actually pick up that and say like, ODPP says COVID caused a pandemic of backlog, COVID stopped prosecutions, So that one is something, it's not what you actually set out to say. It was not a part of your statement, but in explaining, you come up with that. Or when you mentioned, when you asked about the Kidero case, and I can leave this place and say like, ODPP says police botched Kidero slap case. So, you see, so it's there are quite a number of examples, but we never set out that we are actually going to misquote you. It's in the paraphrasing, and at times you feel that what he said, the main thing that he said, what we've actually carried is not the main thing that he said, but it is one of the things that he said. I picked some examples, and I don't know if like when you said witness protection, you just sit on the committee. I can leave this place and say that DPP denies being a part of witness protection program. You see, but it is how I have paraphrased it. It's not that I set out to paint you in bad light. There's this case where Leila said something that if an area is poor, then you probably tend to have high crime rate. I can actually say DPP says poor people are criminals. Yeah, I'm just giving you examples. Yeah, I'm just giving you examples. You see? Then there's this thing that you said that you were answering a question and you said like, we never want to investigate. Your job is to prosecute. So I can actually just say, Haji, we never want to investigate. Yeah, we just, so, and when somebody picks that, it's because, just a minute, it's because somebody will read that, or one of the officials will read that and say like, okay, fine. There is no way that we'll just prosecute a case without even a little investigation, but the media is now painting us in bad light. So usually we never come with, as you call it, it's never a case of murder, as in there was malice aforethought. It is more of a case of manslaughter, Yeah. I think that probably shed some light into this. So we should never have this acrimonious relationship that even when we call, the first thing you think like, oh, I am going to be misquoted. No, we never have that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sasa unajua police wakiwatandika msicomplain pia because then it will just be like the same thing. Ameongeza chumvi. Juzi nimeona Eric Omondi alichapa katupwa huko ndani. Sasa it's unfortunate, but what we are asking, please try as much as possible to give the right picture, because for example I was actually thinking after I answered the question on NCIC, I said wataenda kusema Haji tells off Kobia, Reverend Kobia. That's a, but yeah, you see the problem is the headlines. Sasa unajua police naye pia, for example, atafikiria headline yangu ni kuchapa hii watu vizuri. But if we can strike a balance where, because you know justice matters are also very sensitive, and sometimes when they are not framed rightly, they can influence certain events, including intimidating witnesses. If you have a heading that is very, you know, for example, we've had several headings about Kimwarer, how we have failed in prosecuting this matter. Yet, you know, media is not expounding that we've not even started the case. We are still dealing with high court matters where they are trying to block us from proceeding with the case. So mtu anasikia mumefail, as unaona witnesses hata they are not even interested. Sema si ala mbona mnatupigia si kesi imefail. You know, it has some repercussions that are also negative in allowing us to effectively prosecute. But we appreciate that it's your work and it's part of your duties to inform the public. The only thing we are asking is try and make it as factual as possible, as close as it is to the facts that are there. So I really want to thank you.
Bwana Director, with your permission, I've been given the opportunity to bring today's session to an end. And therefore, I want to invite you for our 4 o'clock or 4 p.m. or 4:20 p.m. tea. Our program for tomorrow starts at 9 a.m. And we're looking forward to seeing you. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for being part of today's session. Asante sana. Editors hoye! Editors Guild hoye! Editors Guild hoye! Aya, sawa. Please keep time tomorrow. We start 9 o'clock sharp. Okari